I obviously think our side is great because walking through hellfire every day is amazing. You get a nice tan out of it.
I was like less looking forward to the tan.
I'm more superficial than you.
Yeah. I took a trip into the future, and I...
Drug assisted, or you had like a time traveling machine?
I'm not answering that question.
Okay. Time travel.
Yes. And I frankly didn't want to wake up 40, 45 years old.
Thanks, Ileana, for joining us on Boba and Biotech. That's what we're calling it.
Nice. Did you just make that up?
Not right now, like 2 days ago.
Okay.
But importantly, we need to judge your drink. So I would have expected you to get something with bubbles, but you got, what is that?
Oh, there's no bubbles?
Huh?
There's no bubbles in it?
I don't know. You've been drinking it.
I thought that was implied. I guess I didn't realize that there are no bubbles.
Well, our crew failed.
But it's great, actually. It's really good.
The Haiti stuff is pretty good. And they suggested I get this like coconut mango sago thing. It's awesome. I only wish Julie didn't tell me it's 510 calories. So now I'm going to die of sugar poisoning. Yeah. All right. So can you tell us a little bit about your backstory?
Yeah.
How you got involved in venture?
Yes. Well, I'm originally from Italy.
Yeah.
I grew up in a small town outside of Rome.
No boba there?
No boba, definitely no boba. Still no boba to this day. My dad is retiring soon from the Italian army, and I told him that he should bring boba to the region.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a big opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Italians adopted pasta from Asia, and now boba's the next thing.
Yes. No, but I mean, if you had opened a sushi place in Rome like 20 years ago, you'd be rich now. So I think boba is next. But my parents were actually tobacco farmers in southern Italy. So my parents moved to Rome because they thought they'd, give me more opportunities and open up possibilities for, especially in education. They always believed in education a lot as a force to sort of elevate people out of poverty. And the irony was that I actually didn't get much education in Rome at all because I left very young, the first chance I got. I won a scholarship and went to the Netherlands to never come back again. That was not the original plan, but one thing led to another, and it led me to the United States. I came here for college, didn't really know what I wanted to study, but I liked math, chemistry, biology, science, physics, a little less than biology and chemistry. But I ended up studying biomedical engineering as a way to sort of bring all those disciplines together and do something for good.
Yeah.
And got into research really early. Tried my hands at academic research, research with big industry, national labs. I worked at NASA for some time. The pace of research was a little slow, but I liked the creativity of it. So I ended up going to get a PhD at Stanford and studied, again, medical engineering, applied to robotics and the cardiovascular system, which was my fascination. And I think I got into a PhD not with the intention to go into academia, but with the intention to, get rigorous scientific training and ideally find a problem that I thought was really worth dedicating the next 10, 15 years of my life to.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit of an identity crisis when halfway through I realized that was probably not going to happen for me. And I didn't want to force it. And if anything, my biggest pet peeve when I was at Stanford is that it felt like every Stanford student and their mom had to start a company. And I didn't want to start a company for the sake of starting a company. But I did like hanging out with founders. And I thought, it was really energizing to be thinking about the future and about getting the opportunity to shape it. And so the next best thing was venture. Yeah. And frankly, I got into venture originally to pay the bills because the PhD programs are barely enough to pay for life in the Bay Area.
Your boba habits are very expensive.
Boba habits are very expensive indeed. And I got into venture following both curiosity, an interest in sort of learning what was there outside of science and applications of science, and also a way to pay bills.
Cool. And
sorry if that's not very inspiring.
No. I mean, people have to pay bills. And what are some of the things that, now that you've been in the venture side for a while, you feel like operators often misunderstand about the venture side, like all those founders you were dealing with and the complaints they would have about VCs or things they liked about VCs? Now that you've been one, what are some of the things you think they misunderstood? Big misunderstandings, not little ones.
Well, I think it's a really bad habit that VCs have of sometimes of not being very responsive or not being ghosting founders or not being definitive with the responses that they might give or with the milestones that they might set. But I think something that is misunderstood is that it's actually, not to give VCs too much love, but it's actually a very hard job to have to say no that much. Particularly because there's a lot of times when I personally really believed in what the company was doing, and maybe I believed in the science, I believed in the merit, I believed even in the market opportunity, in the founder's ability to execute. And even when you check all those boxes, sometimes it's not enough because there might be mechanisms in the fund that the investor is not privy to, and certainly the founder cannot be privy to. But with relation to funding cycles, with LP commitments, with the allocation of the fund to a certain industry rather than another, internal fund politics. And sometimes those are dynamics that are not explainable. And it can lead to a non-answer as to why it's a no. So it's...
And you think they ghost because they don't want to explain the no? Is that what you mean?
Because they don't want to explain the no, or because they can't, or because they're overwhelmed. Because it's,
too many no's to give
too many no's. Or because sometimes, perhaps they hope that the answer may change and they don't want to close the door on that founder just yet.
So it's a sympathetically awkward no.
It's
the ghosting.
I guess what I'm saying is that there's a lot of depth sometimes to the ghosting. And, maybe some people are just bad people and they're
just lazy.
Are lazy. I'm sure there's some of that too.
All right. I mean, related to those pieces that the founders may not see, what are the dynamics like with LPs? Because I do think that's a world that's invisible to most of the founder side. Like, what are some of the dynamics there that you think were interesting to learn, and like you kind of wish founders at least conceptually understood more? Like, I know within a fund you can't explain it too much, but in general.
I think there's LPs and LPs, right? There's individuals that invest in funds. There's family offices. There's all the way to large institutional fund of funds, mutual funds, pension funds. So different categories of LPs are optimizing for different things, different metrics.
Is it mostly all financial metrics, or do you feel like some of them it's more their version of philanthropy, for example, because it's healthcare?
Yeah, I'd say it's more financial metrics than it is for VCs. But there's definitely also a class of LPs that invests in venture because they are curious, or because they're techno optimists, or because they want to hang around the venture crowds. And it's there's a lot of venture that is intangible, and it's not necessarily the best asset class for certainly for liquidity and for long-term outcomes. The average venture fund doesn't outperform the stock market. In fact, even the better than average ones don't. But there's intangible value that comes with being part of what's next, being part of the future, And I think in any type of investor is also a talent scout. It's a talent business. So the LPs I typically like the best are the ones that are sort of making their craft to identify emerging managers, and perhaps those are also the riskiest managers.
Yeah.
But it turns out that statistically, people do really well on their first fund, and sometimes there's confounding variables, right? Smaller funds and more niche, unpenetrated.
How many LPs would it? I'll make it up. Like $100 million fund typically have.
It really depends. You can have single LP, $100 million funds. Or you can have, usually more diversification is usually better. But just like in a funding round for a company, you'd have an anchor, a lead, someone that believes in you first, they introduce you to their friends, and it sort of goes from there.
Now that you've been, on the VC side for a while, how have you changed how you judge the founders over time?
How have I changed?
How you judge the founders over time.
How I judge the founders. I think it's really humbling to remember that there's a whole life behind the founder. I think there's some parts of the venture ecosystem that push this narrative that founders are, the 9 to 9, 6 days a week and sleep in the office and you can't pay yourself and probably don't have kids or a wife or a date in 5 years. And I think that's just not real. But the more we paint that narrative, the more we create these archetypes in our mind of these founders for whom the company is literally all they have.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit hyperbolic. It is, in a way, taking up a lot of their mind share.
Yeah.
But there's so much that a founder has going on and that doesn't transpire. Obviously through the fundraising process, but really even to the company. And it just stays.
In light of that, did it change what kinds of founders you thought would be more successful and more investable?
It definitely it has made me want to learn a lot more about what they've done before starting the company. And I, in the least, in the most positive way possible, I like people that have gone through some sort of struggle.
Yeah.
Whether it's a personal struggle, financial struggle, family struggle, but building that ability to, develop resilience and found oneself on yourself, building networks that are supportive and maintaining that optimism through serious life struggles, I think is almost a prerequisite.
20 VCs ghosting them doesn't count though.
No.
That's not enough struggle.
I don't think so.
That's just par for the course. And I guess as you think about
struggle and shitty jobs.
That they've had shitty jobs?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if they were like born with a silver spoon, you're like,
Well, you can be born with a silver spoon and choose to take on a shitty job.
Okay. What if they just did it to entertain themselves, to be with the commoners? Fine. Okay.
That counts.
All right. And like related to that, I guess this intersection of how do you find a good founder and dealing with internal dynamics with LPs and stuff, I feel like a lot of VCs will say they'll lead rounds, but oftentimes when it comes down to it, you get, if they're not going to ghost you, they'll often give the answer of like, oh, that's great. Let us know when you have a lead and we'll come in. What do you think drives those dynamics of people? Very few seem to be willing to build up the conviction to actually lead and do the work of pricing and putting in a term sheet. Whereas like often a default answer is they'll just follow. Because I think especially when people are newer to this, they don't realize how often they might get that answer. We're like, oh, they didn't ghost me. Great. They said they'd be in, but they're not going to price it. So do I count them? Do I not count them? But anyway, like, why do you think a lot of VCs fall back to, even if they're interested, they'll have a follow position as opposed to actually lead something?
Yeah. I think there's a lot that goes into that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it is internal, some of it is external, perception driven. But I think leading a round for a company is a very serious endeavor. I think it's a very serious responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And in most cases, it's good if a fund that is not really set up to lead chooses to not lead.
What do you view as like set up to lead?
Set up to lead to me means have investors on staff that have experience operating companies or being on boards.
Yeah.
I think it can be really destructive for a company to have a tourist on their board, even if the person is well-meaning.
Yeah.
I also think there's some signaling elements to it. You know, in tech, you'll have maybe several funds sort of crowding to lead the same company, but in biotech, it's a lot more common to have syndicates.
Yeah.
And if your lead is not a well-known logo, it might be difficult for that round to come together in the way that you want it to. So sometimes when the investor sort of recognizes that themselves, they might be thinking it's actually better for the company to find a lead that's more recognized in the industry. Now, what I think is very good for those kinds of funds is to offer, for example, to co-lead.
Yeah.
And that can help them both demonstrate their conviction, demonstrate their alliance and partnership to the founder, and go together hand in hand in a market and identify that more recognizable lead that could be a better signal for the company. Now, signal is not everything, but it can help. That is not to say that, leads from more recognized funds are always better board members. I actually think it's very variable.
Yeah.
But I think that's some of the dynamics maybe that go into it.
And do you think, like, when there is a fund that could lead, or they have a history of leading, but they choose to follow, is that basically their way of saying no, you think?
I think, again, it depends. If different funds feel different ways about competitive dynamics in their portfolio. I think the best policy is to go to your existing portfolio company that might have a competitive, that might be competitive with this prospective investment. So sometimes it might actually have been the company that has asked the fund to act a certain way and say that they saw you, prospective investment, as a competitor.
Yeah.
There could be sort of invisible internal politics between partners because someone else wants to do a different deal, and they have worked on that deal for longer, or they've built more internal conviction for it.
Yeah.
So I know that it's hard not to read into why you're stating maybe on social media that you're investing in this space, and you want to invest, but you don't want to lead, and what does that mean? But again, sometimes there's invisible things that are worth giving the benefit of the doubt for.
Yeah, I can see that.
Ultimately, it's all about how much trust you have with the partner that you're working with.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of intuition involved in that as well.
What's your view of the more generalist investors that play across spaces versus the biotech specialists? Like, what behavioral differences do you feel like you normally see, or any other hot takes you have on those groups?
I think there's definitely a lot of snobism going on in mutual directions.
I was going to ask about that, but I'm glad you went there. What's the drama there?
Well, I've always been at more generalist funds, but as an individual, I'm more of a specialist. But I really like the generalist mindset. I think it's helped me see sort of outside of the box and try to bring the elements of venture capital that have made the industry what it is, which come from really technology, and connect the dots with biotech and medtech. I think it's very helpful to have that different perspective.
Yeah.
I have found that...
What kind of perspectives are they different on, though? Like, what would be a made-up example of how they would view something differently than the biotech would have?
Well, maybe one good example is business models. A generalist investor is a lot more open-minded about what business models might work out for a given company, whereas a specialist investor might, have more, might be more set in their ways. They've seen the full spectrum of what works and what doesn't, and they might be less willing to try creative things. But, I mean, for example, I think there's a lot of new business models that are emerging for biotech companies, especially to sort of hedge against the volatility that we see in public markets and the challenge of raising private capital, especially in later rounds. But you're seeing companies that are monetizing software, companies that are and using that revenue to then fund drug development activities. But I've even seen companies that are leveraging AI and predictive algorithms to build financial products and then sell those on Wall Street and then fund their drug development activities. You've seen a lot of spin-offs and trying to keep the internal development as light as possible and then spin-off entities to partners that can take on the more sort of extensive development. So I think the generalists are more open to doing funky things like that. But the trade-off is that it's, I guess, less likely to work out by definition. So.
All right. What else is there anything else you've noticed that's like significantly different between them?
Between generalists
and the biotech specialists.
And specialists. I think the generalists have access to different pools of talent, which can also be really interesting. I think a lot of biotech and medtech networks stagnate. It's always the same people, literally, that sort of recycle from company to company. And it's funny because to the specialists, that's a good signal. It's like, oh, I know that person. They came from XYZ company. But for the generalists, they came from XYZ company and that was a mediocre outcome compared to the standards of tech. And so I think the cross-pollination from a talent standpoint is a big opportunity for biotech and medtech, especially as the sector is starting to draw more people from, that may be trained outside of bio and are coming in looking for something more meaningful to do after their big AI exits.
After their little app.
Their little nap?
Their little app.
Oh, okay.
Like, I made an addictive game. Might as well go cure addiction in the biotech realm. Are there any examples of companies or deals that taught you a hard lesson over the years?
It kind of goes back to that question that you asked me earlier about leading and not leading. I did have a very hard situation with a company that I loved. And I thought, the world didn't get it. And I knew they had been out in the market. It wasn't a surprise. But I was like, okay, all they need is a term sheet. We'll give them this term sheet and it will catalyze the round. And you tell that story to your partners and you tell that, the founder believes it. You don't have to tell them the story.
They're like, yes, term sheet, love this.
They're like, yes, they tell you the story. And then we couldn't put the round together. And it was during the Christmas break. And I guess it was also one of my first deals ever. So I also, as an investor, didn't have a reputation. I didn't have that many people to call or like friends that,
Like, hey, give my company money.
You, me, yeah, exactly. And it turned out to be a difficult situation because we had a minimum raise requirement to raise the round, and we couldn't raise it.
Yeah.
So.
And is that part of what like drives your, like, I guess you were reinforcing that view earlier that if you worry your name isn't good enough to catalyze the round, better to not try?
I think it depends.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you have to try because the only way you can make a reputation in venture is take a bet when it's not obvious.
Yeah.
So I've learned to do that. But there's ways to de-risk the process than just, riding the impetus of the momentum and going for it without much evidence that the round can in fact come together on those terms.
Yeah. All right.
And it's also a matter of like, did you have the right pricing? Did you have the right sort of structure for the round? And
do you think venture, at least for early biotech stuff, is actually that price sensitive?
Yes.
Okay.
It can be. In biotech, yeah.
Well, I guess I meant like if it's a big name lead, they kind of don't care what the price is. And if it's a, up-and-comer, haven't heard of them before, it also may not matter what the price is. They just won't come in.
I think it really depends on the fund strategy.
Okay.
There's strategies that have to be very price sensitive. There's strategies that can afford not to be.
Fine. Fair enough. What do you think are some overrated trends in biotech right now? And then we'll get to underrated. If shorting private biotechs was possible, what kinds of things would you be shorting?
Well, I don't know if it's overrated, but I have definitely seen a little bit of a decline in the broadly tech bio. It's hard to find differentiation.
Yeah.
I've also seen a decline in the use of the term tech bio. I think now the new term is AI X bio.
A good rebrand.
Well, I don't know if it's a rebrand. Yeah. I mean, to be clear, I think there's a huge opportunity to apply AI to drug discovery and to biology more broadly. I think the reason that it's so hard is in part because it's so immensely difficult to decode and really mechanistically understand biology at the multi-scale level that we need to understand it to develop effective drugs. So it's obviously a very good application of AI, but it's challenging for startup companies with limited funding to create end-to-end processes and propositions and get it all right, basically from the target selection to manufacturing and build the right teams and do it all on time and with enough differentiation. So,
Okay. What do you think is underrated right now?
I think manufacturing
is
underrated.
Okay.
I think while I was just reading the ARPA-H program announcements from a couple of weeks ago, and there's a lot of emphasis on, okay, like we're going to discover all these drugs. How are we actually going to make them? And how do we align the technologies that we've developed in the earlier stages to the scale up that we're going to need?
But if their margins are so good, do you think manufacturing is still a problem? Just like where they'll price it in the US versus what their COGS actually are.
Yeah, I think it's also a big topic about bringing back the manufacturing to the US itself. Manufacturing broadly, I think, of drugs, but of anything, really.
Okay. That's fair.
Maybe not underrated.
Just because the government cares about it doesn't mean that the investors are after it.
No.
Those don't necessarily go hand in hand. Right, and a lot of investors often think about jumping into operational roles at some point, or they get tempted by it. What do you think drives that interest in them?
I think every investor, after doing the job for more than a few months, expresses this feeling of being on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And that's really a reflection of the fact that, you get to be a part of a story. And I personally don't love the investors that publicly take a lot of credit for success stories, but I think
if it weren't for their money,
psychologically, I think psychologically you kind of have to believe that you played a role. Otherwise, it feels like your contribution amounted to nothing. Like if you believe that the best founders would have gotten funded anyway, which is probably true, pretty quickly you're going to feel like you don't have much purpose. And I think that's what drives maybe a lot of investors to think that they want to start companies.
Yeah.
And that's the generous interpretation. The less generous one is that they might believe they're better than all the founders they meet.
Yeah. Or both.
And that they would have done it better.
Yeah.
Because it's always much better said than done.
Yeah.
But I think the former is a better interpretation of it.
And then why do you think some of them do end up jumping versus some of them don't? Like what stops the ones that, it sounds like many of them will think this way, but some of them will never jump to the operational side. What do you think stops them?
The reality of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they all try and they're like, eh.
I don't know if they all try, but my rule has always been, as long as I can find people that are clearly better than me for the problem at hand, then I should fund them. Yeah. And so maybe they're just always finding people that are better than them.
That goes against your earlier answer, but sure. I think it might be like, you take the chance of it going poorly. Well, because I think that's one of the benefits of being on that side is they feel the flexibility to take credit when it goes well. But if it goes poorly, they're like, oh.
Well, okay. I guess if I can give you a more real answer, I think you can play around with the thought of wanting to be a founder. But when you're seriously like, okay, I think I have to go build a company.
Yeah.
At some point, you start doing the math. Right? Like at some point you talk to your partner and you're like, okay, let's draw this out. Like what would it actually look like if I went and built this company, if I left my job in venture capital? And the answer is just purely irrational. It just doesn't make sense to leave your VC job to go and start a company. Unless you have this inevitable belief that you have to go do it. And you know that it's irrational and you know that you're unlikely to end up in a better financial situation than you currently are. Yeah. And you have to beat it out of yourself that it's a good idea. And you're usually very successful at beating it out of yourself because it's not a good idea. And
I think that definitely makes sense. I could see that.
So the industry has figured out the right retention incentives.
I mean, so all that being said, you are now jumping to the startup side. What made you kind of not listen to the logical side of yourself?
I
obviously think our side is great because walking through hellfire every day is amazing. You get a nice tan out of it.
Yeah, I was like less looking forward to the tan, but more.
I'm more superficial than you.
I sort of took a trip into the future. And I...
Drug assisted or you had like a time traveling machine?
I'm not answering that question.
Okay. Time travel.
Yes. And I frankly didn't want to wake up 40 or 45 years old. I hope I said a number that's
I'm not 40
older than your
it's
age. and realize that I had been on the sidelines for all that time. And when I was a freshman in college, I had a close-up experience with disease that, made me sort of dreamy and wishful of all these future plans and all these things that I would get to do. after college if I had the chance. And so when I had sort of a 10-year anniversary from that, I was in BC.
Yeah.
And I felt extremely privileged to be in that position. And it's in many ways the best job in the world. I mean, when I describe it to people back home, they're like, that's a job. You can really get
people bring you boba.
People bring you boba.
And you just ghost people
I have
all day?
a fancy office on Bryant Park. But it wasn't a good enough answer for the college, Ileana.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to try to do something more authentic. And I don't think BC is going to collapse as an industry. So if I really need to come back to it, find a way.
Yeah. And as you, all right. And as you've taken this step kind of across the line, are there already things you're saying that were different from what you thought it would be? Or like you thought you understood this part of being a founder or starting something, and then now you're on this, say like, oh shit, I really underestimated that part.
Yeah, everything.
Okay.
I think I just didn't get a job description, so I didn't know. Yeah. I think the most unexpected part is the context switching. And just sort of being ready on the fly for everything. Yeah. When I was in venture, I took pride in going to meetings prepared. Yeah. I thought it was the least I could do for the founders, that, you know, to have studied their company, studied their market, come with questions. Not presumption, hopefully, but questions and interest. And now I can't do that. I don't have the ability to prepare for my meetings or to prepare for podcasts or anything. So I just feel constantly unprepared, and being comfortable with that is very difficult for me. And that's probably the part that I didn't expect to hit me as much. I mean, there's many others, but this is the answer that I thought of right now.
I can see that.
For me specifically, you can see that?
No, just in general. Okay. I could totally see people not expecting how many fire drills they have to deal with on a daily basis. So they're like walking into an interview and they got to be all smiley and stuff, but in the back of their head, they're like, God damn it, that like terrible thing just happened. I really need to go solve it. But over here, we're going to sit, smile, and act calm.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. And then tomorrow it'll be something else. Yeah. What's something that's common in startup world that you like strongly disagree with, that you feel like there's a common dynamic on our side, but you strongly disagree with it?
I think probably what I hinted at earlier, this idea that, you know, I mean, again, choosing to start a company is already an extreme decision. I don't think that there's anything else to prove other than the actual operational execution of your company. Yeah. And the strength of your team and the, you know, cohesion of it and of the vision of the mission that you have. I think the other stuff is unnecessary. Of, you know, don't pay yourself, sleep on the floor. I know founders that tell me that that's what I should be doing at this stage. So, oh, really? Yeah. And I mean, you know, granted, it's difficult to raise capital, and this is I'm not trying to be disrespectful of that or not acknowledge that. And I actually have a lot of respect for people that self-fund or, you know, go through hell and back because they believe so much in that idea. But I'm more talking about the narrative extending to well-funded companies. Yeah. And I think that just draws people out of entrepreneurship that cannot afford that financial strain. And at the same time, it's probably true that your life is going to be rather extreme for that period of time.
So don't make it worse than it has to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't worry, we're in the home stretch. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you change about our sector?
Our sector being?
Biotech. This is Boba and Biotech, not Boba and Tech.
Is it cheesy to say that if I could wave a magic wand, I'd want good science and good medicine to not have too many external barriers?
What do you view as the external barriers?
Well, I mean, of course, as any business, we have to pay for products. There's always someone that pays for the products that we develop.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just feels unfair that, if you build something that's valuable and that actually meaningfully drives the needle forward, the company might still fail for a whole other host of reasons that have got nothing to do with how good the science actually was. Or
is there like a structural element that you would want to change with your magic wand that you think is the biggest cause of that?
I mean, there's probably many. The structure of, the pharmaceutical industry, of reimbursement, of prescribing behaviors, even patient adherence. So, it's not necessarily big evil pharma or big evil reimbursement processes and insurance companies.
It's big lazy patient not taking the pills.
It could be a big lazy patient, exactly. But that's still just as frustrating. So.
Just take your medicine, damn it. All right. Last question. Where do you think the next big leap in clinical impact is going to come from?
Ooh. I think clinical trials are never going to go away, but I don't think they should look like what they look like today. I wish we used clinical trials in a less exploratory way and in a more confirmatory way. So I don't know if that's, N-of-1 trials or if it's underwriting therapies based on virtual trials, computational predictions, but in a way that is more reliable and acceptable.
I think your magic wand will come in handy for that part.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for taking the time. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, we're done.
Yeah.